He pinned me against the chilled metal of the walk-in freezer door, our breaths misting in sharp bursts that mirrored each other. The kitchen behind us was dark, save for the red glow of the exit sign above the back hallway, a warning light we ignored. His first attempt faltered against the tight resistance of my body. I drew a hiss of air between clenched teeth, thighs shaking from the cold and the shock. "It's okay," I murmured, though neither of us truly believed that yet. He tried once more, slower this time, the blunt pressure slipping an inch further before my body locked up again. Vapor curled off our skin in the freezer's icy draft. His coat carried the scent of wet pavement and bargain detergent, grounding anchors while the rest of me spun. "Breathe," he whispered hoarsely, his forehead dropping to mine. I relaxed my fists tangled in his shirt and exhaled, long, shaky, and intentional. My grip eased, muscles gave way, and he slid past the barrier with a tremor that dragged a small cry from my lips. The freezer latch clicked behind my shoulder, each motion a steady metronome ticking toward the point of no return. He braced himself on the frame, arms trembling as he fought to stay in control. Warmth surged low, fierce in its gentleness, and I arched toward him, heedless of the freezing metal at my back. He cursed under his breath, hips moving in a rhythm that felt like both pleading and apology. Salt stung where his mouth found the curve of my neck. Tears pricked not from sadness, but from being cracked open after so long sealed shut. My hands traced the broad span of his shoulders beneath damp fabric, learning the form I'd only fantasized about in lonely, midnight spirals. A gust rattled the sheet metal awning outside, making us both flinch, but the storm masked our ragged gasps. He drove in deeper with one sure thrust that sent heat flooding outward. I clenched on instinct. He froze, struggling to hold back. "Too much," he gasped. "Don't stop." The words escaped before I could think bare, aching truth. He groaned into my collarbone and restraint gave way. Every movement after that was frantic, grateful, need so sharp it suffocated until it set you free. Pressure built, searing and sweet. I clawed at his back as his body tensed. When release hit, it was silent and trembling, my legs giving out beneath me. He followed with a broken sound, hips crashing into the door. Heat surged between us, in jarring contrast to the freezer's bite at my spine. We stayed pressed together while thunder rolled beyond grease traps and dumpsters. My hand trembled as I tried to smooth the damp hair at his temple. He kissed my jaw, gentle, hesitant, then eased out. Emptiness rushed in, swift and cruel. I slid down the door until my rubber soles found slick tile, knees buckling. He steadied me, zipper still half done, eyes wide and full of unspoken questions. I never imagined I'd cross that line. I'm 39, newly divorced, barely scraping by in the same town that once felt like safety. He's 24, my line cook, the one who covers shifts when panic keeps me trapped in the office with ledgers and memories. For months, he worked 2 feet away while I tried to reassemble myself one breath at a time. Tonight, a flood shut down Main Street. We closed early, laughter lingering in the dining room like a life I couldn't enter. He found me staring at the freezer invoice, eyes burning, and asked if I was okay. Instead of answering, I grabbed his sleeve. "What do you do when the only person who makes you feel whole again is the one you should never touch?" We zipped, tried to breathe evenly. Rain hammered the alley door. Neon from the bar across the lot flickered pink through the slats. He brushed his thumb over my cheek, eyes wild with both remorse and relief. I managed a nod. It wasn't forgiveness or a vow, just the silent recognition that the line had been crossed. If you've ever risked everything just to feel real again, this might strike too close. Hit like, subscribe. Watching through helps these stories find others who might need them. The diner's older than my divorce papers. A prefab chrome box crouched beside Route 19, where truckers still honk at the pie-shaped sign missing one neon bulb. I bought it the same month my marriage fell apart, July heat and fresh ink on the decree. The for sale sign felt like a dare. Friends called it a new beginning. Truth is, it was a hiding spot that served breakfast. I'm up by 4 a.m., 5 days a week. Lights on while the sky's still dishwater gray, coffee brewers bubbling like heart monitors in a ward. Nobody visits. I used to think that hum could save me. Stay busy enough and grief can't catch you. Seth wandered in that first winter morning 3 years ago. 21, backpack slung, smelling like gas station soap. He asked if I needed a dishwasher. Frost on his collar told me he'd walked from the only bus stop. I said yes, handed him an apron still damp from bleach. He didn't smile, not then. But when he knocked over a stack of cups and mumbled sorry, like he meant it for everything in his life, something in me clicked. Another soul gathering guilt for things they didn't cause. We worked side by side, mostly in silence. Carl, my manager, grumbled that Seth was slow. But I saw how he stacked plates with precision, silverware lined up, polished until even fluorescent lights couldn't find a flaw. Some nights after close, I'd find him in the corner booth, sketchbook open, drawing dusty pie case bottles like chrome and sugar were worthy subjects. He always shut it quick when I appeared, eyes cautious, until one night I asked to see. Charcoal lines captured our busted coffee maker, the shimmer of grease on the grill, my profile in 5 strokes. I draw what's here, he said. For the first time, I felt seen, not just occupied. Post-divorce life came in little humiliations. A dead car battery in a frozen lot, the clerk mispronouncing my name while dividing retirement accounts, my ex texting pictures of his rescue dog the kids adored on weekends. Seth saw me absorb every blow without pity. He fixed the car after one shift, jumped it, then replaced the corroded cables on his day off. When I tried to pay him, he shrugged. Safer for everyone if your car starts. The words landed like a steadying hand on ice. Our connection stayed buried, visible only in glances. How his shoulders eased when I entered. How I lingered by the dish pit under the pretense of checking water temperature. We never touched until the freezer door jammed last fall. He wedged a crowbar in while I held the frame. The latch popped, and we slammed together, shoulder to shoulder, chest to chest. I laughed, sudden and startled. His laugh followed, vibrating through both of us. He stepped back so fast he hit his elbow on a shelf, cursing under his breath, cheeks burning. I teased him about being clumsy. He couldn't meet my eyes for an hour. More cinematic moments piled up. A quiet Monday, rain tapping glass. One booth occupied. Local radio murmuring Patsy Cline. I sat across from him on break, splitting the last blueberry muffin. Halfway through a bite, he asked, "Why'd you keep the place?" I answered honestly, "Because it was broken and I could fix broken." He nodded like he'd tuck that away. Another night, after hours, we wiped down the chrome following a health inspection. The bar's neon sign blinked through the blinds, red light strobing our reflections on the steel. He asked to borrow the ladder, swapped out the office bulb that had been flickering for weeks, the one I kept ignoring. When he climbed back down, flashlight casting a glow along his jawline, my pulse jumped like it hadn't in years. I thanked him, voice barely above a whisper. He paused, the beam tracing over my face before he quietly returned the tool to its case. I tried pulling back, cutting his hours, doubling up shifts with others. It only lasted 2 weeks. The kitchen unraveled into disorder. Wrong orders, broken plates. Carl barked. Waitresses exchanged exasperated glances. I put Seth back on Friday shifts and told myself it was for productivity. But each time he stood at the pass window handing over a dish, our fingers brushed. A crackle of static. He'd mumble hot plate, even when it was. He never once asked about my ex. I never pried into the stories behind the scars on his hands. Instead, we talked about jukebox songs, meteor shower hot spots, and whether pie crust should flake or crunch. One cold January day, he brought me a library book on constellations, with a page dog-eared at Orion. "For your smoke break stargazing," he said. I kept it in the office drawer, right beside aspirin and tax documents, flipping it open some nights just to reread his penciled note in the margin. "Hunter hearts can still rest." Then came last week, storm alerts scrolling across the TV, lights flickering, customers leaving early. I locked up by 8. Seth hovered near the coffee urn, offering to help carry freezer boxes before the power cut out. The sound of rain drowned out logic. In the back hallway, dim red emergency lights hummed. I reached for a box of frozen fries, slipped on the wet tile. He caught me at the waist, strength steady through soaked cotton. My grip tightened reflexively on his arms. He shifted, pressing me to the freezer door. His eyes asked a question. My answer was a kiss, coffee, and fear. A surrender so swift the carton hit the floor, forgotten. Our bodies moved with a rhythm we hadn't rehearsed, the latch snapping shut behind my head. The storm outside faded, leaving only the cold metal, our breathing, and his touch asking silently if I could endure this. I didn't just endure, I gave in. Now, the shift lights flicker on for morning prep. No one else knows what the thunderstorm concealed. I'm at the counter, rolling silverware, wrists still warm from where he held me. He's 2 feet away, slicing onions. Lashes grazing his cheeks, a subtle tug at one corner of his mouth. Part recollection, part caution. The radio plays a lullaby I used to hum to infants. I brace a tray. And wonder, is this redemption in disguise or the beginning of collapse? I told myself the freezer moment was just a weather-soaked lapse, something the next morning's sunshine would dissolve. But the air inside the diner never cooled back to what it was. Heat began pooling in tight corners, between pans, under the fry hood, inside my chest, until each shift felt like standing too close to flames only I could feel. That first Thursday after the storm, we shared a closing shift from 5 p.m. onward. I tried to stretch prep, hopping space might dim the sparks, but orders flew in fast and we were short. We danced our stations, clangs, shouted order up. Seth at the grill, his shoulders tense under harsh light, collar of his black tee soaked with sweat. Each time he flipped a patty to the bun, the sizzle buzzed low through me. I stayed at the pass, but steam distorted the metal border between us until his shape shimmered in every reflective surface. During a break, Seth restocked salt by the dish pit. I joined with sliced tomatoes to refill. Our elbows nearly brushed above the stained cutting board. The kitchen clock ticked louder than the knives. Mid-slice, he glanced at my hand, a long pause that stole my breath. I cut crooked, juice spraying. He grabbed a towel, wrapped it gently around my wrist to catch the seeds. His thumb passed once, twice. Then he stepped away, like the contact burned. We didn't speak, but that fleeting moment held more intimacy than anything from that freezer. On Friday morning, the truck delivered bulk flour. The storage room is a narrow squeeze, one exposed bulb, bags piled high. Carl yelled for help. Seth and I got wedged inside, passing 50-pound sacks in a relay from door to pallet. Flour hung in the air like mist, clinging to hair, sticking to damp skin, clogging throats. Halfway through, I slipped on a spilled handful and lurched forward. My chest met his back. He caught both me and the bag with a grunt. "You all right?" he asked, voice rough, part dust, part something else. I nodded, though I couldn't hear myself over my heartbeat. We kept going, but the gap between us had vanished. Every pass, our knuckles brushed. Sparks flared through the flower fog. With the last bag, he held on just a second longer, his palms over mine, gripping the paper sack. Our eyes locked across the curve of it. The dangling bulb buzzed. One more step and we'd have met lips first. But Carl shoved open the door, shouting about payroll, and the moment burst like sifted flour. Saturday brought the farmers' market crowd. I ran the register. Seth cleared tables. An older couple asked for more napkins. He reached across me for the dispenser, his arms grazing my ribs, breath murmuring, "Excuse me." The AC kicked on, but heat rippled beneath my shirt where his skin met cotton. My fingers missed the next price key. Coins rolled under the pie case. Seth crouched to retrieve them, his knee brushing the back of my calf under the counter skirt. A brief, unseen contact that sent goosebumps up my spine. That night, I tried to overwrite him with routine, drove home, nuked leftovers, folded laundry while reruns filled the room with synthetic laughter. But every matched sock was a memory of his hands keeping me upright. Every jingle shattered on the image of flour clinging to his lashes. At 11:48, my phone lit up. "Did you get home safe?" I hovered over the screen until the message dimmed, then typed, "Yes." Light still on there, 3 dots blinked then vanished. No reply. I lay awake, listening to the hum of the fridge, haunted by the silence of what we hadn't said. Sunday came, another short-staffed opening. Carl called out. I chopped vegetables alone at 5 a.m. rain tapping the skylight, too early for anyone reasonable. But Seth showed up anyway, hood up, headphones slung around his neck. "Saw the schedule," he mumbled, shaking rain from his jacket. We chopped side by side in the hush, knives tapping rhythmically in sync. When my blade caught on a strip of onion skin and slipped, his hand closed around my wrist, firm, steady but not rough, just before metal could meet skin. He didn't let go right away. Neither did I. Onion fumes burned eyes that were already too full. He whispered, "Careful," so gently it almost felt like something more. The lunch rush came fast and stole the moment. Orders piled up into chaos. Grease popped, plates clattered. In the haze of service, speech fell away and was replaced by gestures, his nudge on my shoulder when fries went too dark, my elbow to his ribs when soup leaned too salty. Each touch echoed the freezer's silent vow, "We're here. No one sees." By 2, the kitchen fell quiet. Carl snored in the office. Front staff folded napkins in the dining room. Overhead, the lights hummed faintly. I stood at the stove, stirring the house chilly. Steam misted my glasses. I lifted them to wipe, blinking against the blur. Seth came up behind me without a sound, but I felt his warmth before I saw his shadow. He reached around and turned the burner down, his hand grazing my abdomen. My breath caught. The wooden spoon knocked against the edge of the pot. He didn't move away, his chest brushing my back, both of us still except for the quiet rhythm of breath. "The way you're shaking," he murmured, voice a soft wind in my ear. I couldn't pretend not to notice. He slid the spoon from my hand, set it aside. One palm found the counter next to mine, close, not touching. My shoulder found the hollow of his. I didn't mean to lean, but my body knew what it wanted before my head did. Above us, the light stuttered. Steam curled around us. His breathing matched mine, slow, unsteady. "Someone might walk in," I managed. He nodded, though he stayed near. His fingertips ghosted along the seam of my apron, a question written in heat. My hands clutched the counter, knuckles blanching. I didn't let go until a door slammed somewhere distant, the hostess returning. We broke apart fast, hips colliding in the scramble. He grabbed a towel and wiped a clean surface, pretending to clean. I stirred the chili too hard, it spat back, stinging my wrist. We didn't talk for the next hour, but every pass in the tight walkway buzzed. When our shift ended, I clocked out first, chest rattling like loose bolts in a dryer. Outside in the drizzle, I fumbled for keys. He approached. Rain beaded on his hair, slid off his nose. He opened his mouth to speak, but thunder ate the words. I climbed into my car, fingers trembling too much to turn the key. He tapped once on the window, soft and mouthed, "Drive safe." I nodded, eyes burning, and watched him walk away through the blur of windshield wipers. At home, I stood under the shower, hot water pummeling skin until the shaking eased. I thought about my grip, how fiercely I clung to counters and control, and what might happen when I finally let go. Sirens wailed at 6:07 p.m., but the customers kept dipping fries, unfazed by the sky's fury. I checked the radar, a solid yellow band creeping across the county like a clenched hand. Carl said we should shut down. I agreed, though he called me jumpy. By 7, the lot was empty. The diner's siding groaned in the gusts. We pulled the neon plug, dragged the trash bins inside, locked the front door. Carl waved from his truck, yelling, "You two close up." It was just us then, me and Seth, fans winding down, parking lot lights glowing through the rain. I was wiping ketchup specks from the foyer glass when thunder boomed, shaking the windows. I flinched. The rag slipped from my hand. Seth appeared beside me, umbrella dangling uselessly. "Storm stalled right over us," he said, voice worn to a thread. I nodded, heart galloping. I wanted him out before the power cut, before the quiet grew dangerous again. "Go ahead," I said. "I'll finish the receipts." His jaw tensed. "You shouldn't be here alone, not now." A lightning flash stopped my protest. Puddles outside gleamed white under the strike. Back in the office, I tried to finish numbers, but they wouldn't stay in their columns. My palms left damp prints on the calculator. Then thunder cracked, and with it, the lights blinked out. Fluorescence snapped off. Only the red of the exit signs remained. I heard his steps echo down the hallway. Seth appeared with a flashlight, the beam sweeping past cabinets and stopping at my trembling hands. "Let me check the breaker," he offered. "No," I began, but the word broke apart. He hesitated. "Claire, you're shaking." Another flash lit his face, concern etched in the lines, something sharper behind it. I followed him down the hall. The breaker panel was tucked near the back door, 10 feet of tile and silence between steel counters and concrete. He tried the switches. Nothing responded. "Transformers probably out," he said, voice bouncing off the walls. Wind slammed the metal door. He held it steady, palm pressed to steel. Mist filtered through the gap. "We should wait it out here," he said, pulling the door closed. Only a safety chain remained between us and the storm. The red glow from the exit sign painted his face in warning light. I folded my arms. "We can't keep doing this," I whispered, barely louder than the wind under the door. He stepped closer. The flashlight dipped, beam trailing to the wet tile. "Then tell me to stop." His words pulsed in the tight space. I looked up, his hair soaked to his forehead, lips parted like he was praying. "I can't," I whispered, voice swallowed by the storm. We stood in the same building, but the diner felt far away. His fingers brushed the damp edge of my collar. I leaned forward without thinking. My hand caught his forearm, holding tight, one last boundary. He stopped, waiting. "You weren't supposed to mean anything," I said, voice cracking. but now you're everything I can't afford to lose. Lightning sparked, the exit sign flickered, my fingers loosened. I let go. Maybe he moved first, or maybe I did. Memory fuzzed in the thunder's crash. My back hit the inner wall. The shelves behind us rattled. His mouth found mine, rain slicked, tasting of peppermint gum he chewed to curb his smoking. The flashlight hit the floor, its light spinning across bags of flour, casting our shadows long and jagged. His hands framed my face, rough, reverent kneading. I gripped his belt loops, yanking him close. Our boots squeaked on wet tile. His jacket fell. Fingers slid under my blouse, thumbs tracing my ribs, slow like he was counting breaks. I shivered, not from the cold. "This won't fix anything," I whispered into his jaw. His voice was rough, but for a few hours, I don't hate myself. The confession ripped through me. I pulled his shirt over his head. Wet cotton hit the floor. Lightning lit his frame, lean muscle, freckles, flour clinging to old scars. He lifted me, my back pressed to a cold steel support beam. My hands tangled in his hair as his mouth found the tender skin beneath my ear, tongue tracing a line that drew a shiver. The storm's breath crept in through the chain gap, cool against overheated necks. He fumbled at my zipper, breath catching as the fabric parted, barring more skin than he'd dared to imagine. My legs locked around his waist. His palm moved between us, searching for heat, gauging if I was ready. I gasped, nails raking across his shoulders. "Please," slipped from my lips, shaky and raw. He guided himself slowly, easing forward. When resistance met him, he stilled, muscles taut. The rain roared around us. I inhaled deep, relaxed, and he pushed past that tight hold, a groan shaking both our bodies. The stretch stung, then melted into relief that burned. He stayed still, our foreheads pressed together, breath slowing to match. A transformer exploded outside, white flare, muffled boom, but neither of us moved. He withdrew, then pushed in again, rhythm even, each stroke tugging a soft cry from my throat. The shelving rattled behind us, cans trembling. My fingertips traced sweat down his spine, feeling the tension woven deep. He buried his face in my neck, whispering my name again and again, tangled with sorries and half-swears. Heat wound tight in my belly, building with each grind of his hips. Thunder cracked, shaking dust loose from the vents, and the force of it tipped me over the edge. Pleasure broke in a cry I muffled against his damp hair. I tightened around him, pulsing waves pulling him with me. He cursed, thrust again, then stilled, buried deep as his breath stuttered from his chest. Heat spilled between us, his whole body quaking against mine. We stayed there, suspended, breath loud in the aftermath, the storm just a distant drumbeat. When he pulled away, the emptiness hit sharp, like a door slammed open to wind. But his hands were gentle, guiding my legs down until my feet touched the floor. They barely held me. He kept me steady, his forehead resting lightly against mine. The flashlight lay discarded on its side, casting faint circles as the battery died. "I was trying to be okay," I whispered, voice hoarse. "But you feel like the only thing that makes any sense." He kissed my brow tender, unlike the rest, and sighed. "We'll destroy each other." We listened, as the rain answered. A siren cried somewhere nearby, maybe downed wires, maybe a crash on slick asphalt. The real world crept back in like the chill through the chain-link gap. We got dressed in silence, fingers steadier now, not from warmth but from knowing what we'd chosen. He picked up the flashlight, clicked it off. Only the red exit light remained. I reached for the chain, his hand covered mine, gave it one firm squeeze, then let go. No words as we moved through the kitchen, checking locks. We wiped condensation from glass, shut down equipment already dark. At the front door he paused. The storm had softened to drizzle. Street lamps blinked back on, painting puddles gold. He looked like he might say something, but traffic hissed past, drowning it. Instead, he pressed his palm to the glass near my head, one print left behind, then stepped into the rain. I watched the tail lights vanish down Route 19, hands resting on chrome still warm from the day. My pulse echoed in the hollow space he left behind. I told myself I was healing, but maybe this was just a new kind of wound. Morning light sliced through the diner blinds, sharp and pale like interrogation beams. I opened alone at 5. No Carl, no Seth. I shoved purpose into every step, starting the coffee, counting the till, wiping surfaces already clean. But every gurgle from the brewer, every creak of the kitchen doors echoed last night, steel kissed by rain, his hands lifting my legs. The fractured glint in his eyes burned into my memory. Shame rode shotgun with it, but longing still curled in the backseat, tapping along my spine. At 7, he appeared in the doorway, hair damp, even though the sky had cleared. He headed straight to the dish pit, sleeves rolled, eyes locked on stainless steel. We didn't speak. Too many words might crack the silence wide open. Customers came in, unaware of the fault line beneath their feet. When I slid a plate of eggs across the pass, his fingers brushed mine for a split second. Heat zipped through me. I jerked back, pretending to drop a napkin. The waitress raised an eyebrow but stayed quiet. We orbited through the shift, careful not to collide. But every reflection in chrome betrayed us on the toaster, the fridge door, our images too close. He filled water pitchers. I felt his presence before I turned. My heart thudded like the mixer set too high. Guilt tasted like scorched coffee. After the lunch rush, I ducked into the walk-in under the pretense of taking inventory. Cool air fogged my lenses. I leaned against stacked crates, breathing in freon and damp herbs, trying to settle nerves that refused to obey. The door creaked open. Seth stepped in, arms full of condiment boxes. "Didn't know you were in here," he lied, voice rough as gravel. Metal shelves cast long shadows. The fridge hummed like the building's only pulse. We stood still, caught between pickle drums and a fan that blew warm, recycled breath. "I keep thinking if I stay away, it'll fade," he said low. I leaned back against the wall. "Does it?" He shook his head. The silence that followed felt obscene. He reached past me for ketchup, deliberately careful not to touch. That distance stung more than everything we'd done. When he left, the door sealed with a hiss, and the cold settled heavier. That night, I made spaghetti for one. The kids were at their dad's. I ate at the counter, facing a blank backsplash. The house smelled like bleach and tomatoes. The kitchen clock ticked at the same rhythm as the heartbeat in my throat. I cleaned dishes that didn't need washing. At 11, headlights swept across my window. My heart jumped, but it was only the neighbor's kid, home late again. The letdown was so sharp I had to sit down. Sunday, I drifted through the grocery aisles until I noticed a jar of dill pickles in my cart, the same kind that pressed into my back in the fridge. I left the cart next to canned beans and drove without a destination. Ended up at the river overlook, wind slashing across gray water. I breathed in tarp-cold air until my fingers went numb, told myself desire is just a reflex, a habit I could break. Monday, Jimmy called off. Seth worked the grill alone. Grease popped loudly enough to hide the sound of me brushing past him to reach the paprika. He tensed but didn't move away. Beads of steam dotted his neck. I followed one droplet to the spot where shirt met skin, then made myself look elsewhere. The radio crackled, some old country love song. I shut it off, muttering something about static. After close, he scrubbed the flat top. I mopped the floor. The diner gleamed under harsh lights and smelled of lemon cleaner. I hummed some nonsense tune just to fill the space. He hummed something in return. It twisted something inside me. At the corner booth, I knelt to wipe down the vinyl. Found one of his sketches wedged under the napkin holder. My face. Head tilted, eyes closed. Last night's ache captured in graphite. The sting behind my ribs was instant. I slipped it into my apron, unsure if I'd burn it or sleep with it under my pillow. Tuesday, clouds rolled in again. Mid-afternoon, lightning cut the power. The backup generators hummed, leaving only the emergency exit signs casting the room in dim red. Customers murmured, uneasy. I offered free pie slices, encouraging them to leave ahead of the flood warnings. Seth and I locked the door in the hush that felt so much like the night everything began. My fingers fumbled for the breaker box, but he reached it first, flipping switches with practiced calm. When the lights blinked back on, neither of us reacted. Carl arrived unexpectedly, drenched and scowling. He asked Seth to stay late to count freezer stock. My stomach knotted. I volunteered too fast. Carl shrugged, oblivious, and left us behind. Seth untied his apron, muttering night. I nodded without looking. He paused by the door, rain veiling the world beyond. "You sure?" he asked. I turned to face him, every muscle drawn tight. "Go home." The words hit both of us. He nodded once and stepped into the downpour. I stood at the window until his tail lights vanished. Tears warmed the glass. Alone, I stocked shelves with shaking hands, gripping jars too hard. One slipped, shattered on the floor, vinegar sharp in the air. I dropped to my knees. A shard nicked my thumb. Tiny pain, surprising blood. I pressed napkins to it, heart racing. And then the absurdity cracked me open. I sobbed, loud, shuddering cries that echoed off stainless steel, louder than any falling dish. I thought of his hands steadying mine, of my grip loosening, of how living now felt like freefall without a net. I wrapped my thumb, locked up, and drove home through sheets of rain. At a red light, I realized I was humming his countermelody, the one he always whistled in the quiet diner. I stabbed the radio button and replaced it with news chatter, someone else's tragedy. At 3:00 a.m., I woke from a dream where freezer doors slammed endlessly. I paced the kitchen, catching glimpses of myself in the black windowpane. A woman hollow-eyed, pulse too loud. I poured whiskey over ice, took one sip, dumped the rest. My phone glowed in the dark, no new messages. I turned it off, afraid the silence was worse than the sound. By Wednesday's shift, Seth and I danced around each other like strangers. No eye contact, no words. We passed plates through Carl as if through prison slots. On break, Seth leaned against the alley wall, cigarette lit, smoke curling from lips that hadn't touched tobacco in months. Rain slid from the edge of his cap. I watched through the cracked back door, wanting to yell, wanting to breathe that smoke straight from his lungs. Instead, I shut the latch, walked away. That night, I found his sketch still tucked inside my apron. I unfolded it. The tears smudged the graphite into shadows. I taped it inside the office locker, behind folders and tax slips. Closed the door. Outside, the diner hummed clean and controlled. I told myself I was healing, but maybe this was just a slower kind of breaking. The county fair opened Friday night, humid and glowing, a blur of neon and diesel. Half the staff left early. Carl stayed on the grill. Seth and I worked the pass like strangers, a rehearsed dance with no eye contact. By 8, storm clouds muscled in over the fairgrounds across the highway. I caught Seth watching the glass, worry lines carved deep across his brow. 10 minutes to close, the bell chimed. Liz walked in, ponytail damp, tote bags slung like armor. She asked for coffee, voice strained. Something simmered beneath the surface. But Carl's shout for more burgers pulled me away. Behind the counter, Seth flipped patties, grease hissing across his wrists. Liz watched too long. Then she turned her gaze to me. The air tightened like a wire pulled taut. The crowd trickled out. Carl waved his spatula in defeat. "Lock up, I'm out." He clapped Seth's shoulder and vanished into the storm. Liz lingered at the counter, coffee swirling untouched. Seth grabbed the mop bucket. I cleaned soda nozzles. Thunder rumbled outside. Liz's eyes flicked between the red glow of the exit sign and Seth's back. "Mom," she said, quiet but firm, "we need to talk." My rag froze. Seth halted mid-mop. He propped it upright and turned. His eyes were tired. Rain streaked across the front windows, turning carnival lights into watercolor smears. Liz stepped off the stool, placing herself between us. "I'm not a kid," she started, voice trembling. "I know something's wrong." Her gaze dropped to my neck, where a bruise had mostly faded but left a memory. She motioned toward the bandage on Seth's hand. "And I don't want either of you hurt." The guilt hit like boiling water. My mouth opened, closed. Seth stepped forward, palms lifted. "Liz, none of this is on you." She let out a hollow laugh. "Isn't it? I've watched Mom vanish piece by piece for years. And you," her voice caught as she looked at him, "you look at her like she's the only thing in the room." Lightning cut the sky. The flash stole the next words. Then the silence deepened. From across the highway, the fair's PA mumbled something about shelters. I sucked in a breath I couldn't quite lift. "Liz, go home." She shook her head. "Dad's flight's delayed. Power might go again. I'm not leaving you two alone." Her words pierced, because she was right. Alone is where we break. Seth's eyes met mine over her shoulder, and in that second, we both knew. We had let this spill into the one place we swore we'd shield. Sirens wailed somewhere west, maybe a line down, maybe worse, but it sounded like judgment. I took a step toward Liz. She backed into a booth, fists clenched. Her eyes weren't angry, they were scared. "I can't lose anyone else," she whispered. Seth's breath hitched. He knew that look. He'd seen it in mine. He moved first, grabbed his jacket, keys jangling. "I'll go," he said. Another lightning flash. He winced at the white-hot strike. "Liz is right, I'm the variable." I shook my head. "Leaving won't undo anything." He gave a small, broken smile. "Maybe not, but maybe it stops the bleeding." Liz cried as he passed her. He stopped by the front glass, hand braced where we once brushed fingers. Thunder shook the frame. His silhouette blurred behind the rain. He turned back once. His eyes found mine. The look said all the words we couldn't. "Devotion, a plea." I raised 2 fingers, hand unsteady. "Goodbye, peace, I didn't know." He nodded, pushed the door. Wind sucked a breath into the foyer. It shut behind him with a final thump. Liz dropped into the booth, shoulders shaking. I slid in across from her, our knees brushing beneath the formica table. The fluorescent lights hummed, far too bright for this kind of confession. She wiped her face with a napkin. "I'm not mad," she whispered. "I'm scared." I held her hands. Me too. A simple truth, and it cracked something open. Outside, Seth's truck idled. Then the engine revved. Red tail lights cut the wet dark. He was gone, swallowed by fair traffic and night. The diner echoed with his absence, like someone had stripped the insulation from the walls. We closed in silence. Liz balanced the till, double-checked the ovens. When we stepped out onto the slick pavement, carnival lights flickered behind the cloud line. The tilt-a-whirl shrieked, thunder folding into its spin. She drove my car, said nothing. I watched the rain-smeared Ferris wheel spin in phantom reflection. At home, only the porch light was on. Inside, the microwave clock blinked, reset by the outage. Liz went upstairs wordless. I stood in the kitchen, where I had kissed a man too young to carry all that guilt, and felt the house settle around the absence. An hour later, David called. Flight rerouted, stuck in Dallas. Relief tangled with loss. I told him the storm was easing, the diner intact. He cracked a joke, said he loved me. I said it back, voice fraying. We hung up, rain softened. I stepped out onto the porch barefoot. Wood cool under my feet, streetlights shimmered in puddles. Across town, the fair's generator gave out. One by one, lights blinked away until night swallowed the sky. I imagined Seth pulled over somewhere, forehead on the steering wheel, trying to decide whether to turn back or disappear for good. Upstairs, Liz's light snapped on, her shadow curled over her desk, shoulders shaking. Fresh pain surged. My daughter, hurting because I soothed myself the only way I knew how. I almost turned inside. Then the porch door clicked open behind me. She stood barefoot, blanket around her shoulders. Without a word, she leaned against my side. I wrapped an arm around her, felt the static of her heartbreak of mine. We watched the rain shift to mist. The scent of asphalt and apology filled the night. She whispered, "Tomorrow's cleanup day at the diner. Want help?" Her voice was both question and forgiveness. I squeezed her shoulder. That was answer enough. Somewhere far off, a truck climbed a hill, engine humming. Maybe it was him. Maybe not. What mattered was this: the absence he left felt holy and harsh. Because for one brief, impossible season, I'd been fully alive in my skin. I reached for him like a rope, but maybe I wasn't drowning. Maybe I was pulling him under, too.